Welcome to Curious Goldfish, a podcast community where music and curiosity come together through interesting conversations with the music makers of our world. I'm your host, Jason English. You can find Curious Goldfish on all the major podcast and social media platforms. And of course, we have all of our content on our website, curiousgoldfish.com. Naomi, I really appreciate your time. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Mid-June. I love your music and your voice. And you have a new album that we're going to talk about, obviously. So we're on the doorstep of summer, official summer. I know the new album is really focused on seasons and changing the seasons. As we are leaving spring and entering summer, I guess what's on your mind at this time of year?
We're doing a summer solstice celebration, which I'm really excited about. And I always think of summer solstice as the time for kind of wish fulfillment because it's the most light. And so it's like the time, like spiritually, it's like the time where the earth is the most giving. So the summer solstice show we're going to play the record straight through, but we're also going to do a little ritual where everyone is going to kind of talk about things they want to manifest for themselves and for other people and for a community. And it's also just like a fun party time because it's lots and lots of light and things are going to be warming up, and I don't live too far from the ocean. So that's what's kind of on my mind. Is just like, I always feel like when summer hits, the energy just like grows.
Got it. Well, that's cool. I guess in terms of wishes, what are you wishing for at this stage, either of the year or of your life right now?
I haven't thought about what I'm wishing for myself yet, but I'm in like a huge transition period. My dad just passed away. I'm moving out of my house, and my record just came out. So I think one of the things I'm wishing for is just like a little bit more ease in my like all these transitions happening, and just joy. Like I want to be surrounded by like music and community at all times. So how can that be a part of my life? I think as music has become my career, it means that so often when I'm doing it, it's happening from like a career-based place and not just to like, hey, let's just hang out and play music together. So try to make sure that music is happening just for music's sake still too.
Yeah, that's good. Well, sorry to hear about your father. So yesterday was Father's Day. That was probably the first one since his passing. I guess how did you celebrate his life yesterday, and what memories came to mind?
Well, it's so funny. Yesterday was actually very easy for me because my dad had a seasonal restaurant on Cape Cod. And so we never did anything for Father's Day because he was always working. So I feel like we were talking about summer, and one of the things I'm noticing is like my brain is kind of used to my dad not being around in the summer because he was usually working like 80 hours a week all summer long. So but I've been thinking about him a lot because we are planning to go to Barbados, which is where his parents were from, to spread his ashes in the fall. So I've been just kind of like daydreaming about that trip a lot and what that's going to be like. And you can do basically, it's called burial at sea there. So you have to like go out on a boat, and like I'm like having this vision of like our whole family like going out on a boat and like being in this like very kind of like paradise place. So just thinking about that a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people reached out to me and they were like thinking of you today, and it just wasn't a hard day because I wouldn't have spent it with him anyways. But yeah, definitely missing him. My brain is kind of doing this little thing where my whole self hasn't like caught up to the fact that he died. So I just keep having these moments of like, oh, you should really call your dad. Like, you haven't talked to your dad in a while. Like you really need to call him. And then I have to kind of like remind myself what's going on. So grief is just so interesting. It's like, my whole self hasn't like caught on yet.
Yeah. That's understandable. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Again, I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
So back to the album, it's called Cycle and Change.
Yep.
Right. And I think it's only been out there for a few weeks. Is that right?
Yeah, about a month. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess what's the feedback so far from either the release shows or you playing songs live? Is there a theme or something that people are gravitating to that might be surprising?
I've been surprised at how many people will not just tell me that they like the record, but like they see themselves in the record. And that feels really special. It's like I'm reaching people a little bit deeper than just like, oh, the music is good.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of queer people reach out to me about the song Eat My Cake, which is about like queer romance and polyamory. They're telling me like, I've never heard a song like this before. I've never seen myself in a song before. I feel really seen. I love this song. And it's just powerful because I was so afraid to write that song when I wrote it like 3 years ago. And I think this happens so often. Like the most powerful songs are the ones that I'm really afraid to write because they're so close to the bone and they're so much the truth. But because they're so truthful, they hit other people. So it's been really nice to get that payoff, I guess, of like, here's a super vulnerable thing for me to say. And the reward is that other people feel seen and it's connecting me to other people. And that's really validating.
Yeah. I think I've either read or seen somewhere where some of the songs actually were written not just 3 years ago, but 9-10 years ago.
Yeah.
A theme emerged and then you put this album together. I guess that had to have been a little bit surprising, right? When you went through that process.
Yeah, I didn't realize that I was writing a record. And then all of a sudden it just became so clear. I was like, oh, there's these songs I often think of my songs kind of as like beings, but they're like interacting with each other. They're talking to each other. They're finishing each other's sentences. One song is picking up a theme and the next song is still kind of talking about that theme. And I realized that. And then when I realized I was writing a record, when I wrote the title track, Cycle and Change, I was like, oh, this is about this whole concept of that everything is constantly changing, but also we're always cycling back to things too. And this is about the seasons and the life cycle of the year. And then I realized like, oh, I already have a lot of songs that are connected to the theme. And then from there, I was like, what songs are missing? And it was the summer songs that were missing. So I had to kind of then write the summer songs.
Interesting.
Yeah, which is one of the things about writing a record that takes place in the seasons is like, I was only writing the songs in this, like when it was that season. So I had like a short window of just like, it's summertime. I have to write these summer songs and like, fingers crossed, I'll get what I want to get after them. So, yeah.
Well, what's interesting in reading that and hearing about that is, some people change so much in a year, let alone 10 years. So the fact that you were able to pick songs from relatively long time ago for an album today, I don't know what that says, but I think that's interesting that they were still relevant and they still mattered in terms of what you're thinking and feeling today,
Yeah, I mean, I think if I went back and said, let me look at all the songs I wrote in my early 20s, the majority of them I would not want to sing today. But a couple of them still feel really true and still really resonate. Fall Song is a song I wrote my first fall in Boston, which was fall 2024. And it's basically a series of vignettes that I witnessed happening in Boston. And it's this feeling that I still have to this day, which is like the beginning of fall in New England is so beautiful. And then it gets dark and it just becomes really heavy and depressing. And that is still true, So even though that song is now almost 11 years old, the truth of it hasn't changed. And so it still feels relevant for me to sing it. And it doesn't feel like I have to pretend that I'm, 10 years younger in order to like perform it,
Yeah. Yeah.
But there are certain songs off of like my first record that I just don't play anymore. I don't feel connected to that person at all. And it's funny. It's oftentimes it's the songs that, it's not that they weren't true, but they're like love songs about a specific person, and like they just don't connect with me anymore. Whereas when I'm singing about these songs that are a little bit deeper, even Eat My Cake, even though it's a love song, it's a queer anthem. And so when I'm singing it, it's not so much about the people I wrote it about as much as it's about this like desire to just feel accepted for who I am. And I think that is a truth I'm going to hold probably for a very long time. And so I think as my songwriting has gotten more depth, I feel the songs have more longevity to them.
Well, I think what's interesting too is this hopefully will speak to the power of music, right? You and I don't really know you, right? But I think on paper, we couldn't be more opposite. I live in the South, you're in the Northeast. I'm white, you're not.
I'm
you're a
not for
woman,
anyone. Yeah.
I'm a man, I'm middle-aged, you're a little bit younger. And, I could probably go on, the list goes on, right? But I think what's interesting is, especially the song Bulbs,
Yeah.
that was something that really sort of resonated with me. I mean, the opening line is like one for the ages. You say here, I garden in October. It's a promise to myself that I'm going to make it through the winter.
Yeah.
Right. I grew up in the Christian tradition. A lot of times, preachers and things like that would talk about, well, we're in a season of this and a season of that. And oftentimes, obviously, winter is sort of perceived as dark and negative and cold. But we all in our lives go through our winters,
Yeah.
and so
Mm-hmm.
that was really interesting how you did that, and the idea of like planting bulbs in the ground and having them, kind of grow a few months down the road. So I just wanted to tell you, like, I connected with that. Again, I don't really know you, but on paper, we couldn't be more opposite. I think that speaks to just sort of the power and strength of music.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that was another song that just came out of like a deep truth, which was like we were going into the first pandemic winter when I wrote that song. And I was genuinely like not sure if I was going to make it through the winter or if people I knew were going to make it through the winter because people were dying and it was really scary.
Yeah.
And so I think, maybe one of the reasons that we're so different, but that song will release to you is because like I was just being really honest of
Mm.
like, hey, I'm really scared right now and I'm trying to find optimism. And I think the song is kind of flirting with optimism. Like sometimes I say that line, like, I am going to make it. And other times I say, like, I hope I'm going to make it. um, and yeah, but I think that's like, that was both kind of literally like we were at a point in the pandemic where we didn't know really what was going on and we weren't sure. But also it is a metaphor for just our lives. We get to these points in our lives where there's a lot of darkness and you're like, I know if I can make it, there's something really wonderful at the other side of this, but I'm in a heavy place and I'm not sure if I am going to be able to make it through.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's vulnerable to say that,
Mm.
but I think in saying the like vulnerable thing, it connects with people.
Yeah. Well, again, in researching, I mean, it feels like you've experienced a lot in your young age. I mean, you just mentioned you obviously, your father just passing, but you've dealt with a number of things. I guess what's been the most difficult, quote unquote, winter of your life that you've had to endure, and that hopefully you've come on the backside of.
I'm definitely in a difficult winter now. Like, um, yeah, having my dad pass away was very difficult, and I'm also like separating from my husband at the same time. So just like lots and lots of loss is happening.
Mm.
But I think some of the more difficult times were when I was younger and I I didn't know myself as well and I didn't have as strong of a community. Um and I think about just like there were just times where I felt very lonely. Um, I grew up, I was the only Black kid in my school on the Cape. And I was queer, and there were just like these periods of my time when I was a little kid that I just like so clearly didn't feel like I fit in anywhere. And even though overall I would say I'm an optimistic person, like I'm pretty buoyant, um, the hardships that I feel like I'm experiencing now, I feel like I'm so much more resilient because like I feel my community has come out in like such a strong force. It's incredible. People Venmoing me, making me meals, like people coming by and helping me clean my parents' house, people like coming and setting up the memorial service, like just like hundreds and hundreds of people like showing up and doing incredible things, which has, I think, made me feel so capable because I'm like, oh, I don't have to carry this stuff alone. And I think even though like the hardships of my youth were comparatively like not as hard, they felt harder because I felt isolated.
Yeah, isolated. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel really capable of doing the hard stuff right now, even though it is hard because I'm not doing it by myself. And I'm not even just doing it with like a couple people. Like I have this huge community that's just been amazing.
No, that's really cool. That's really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I think you've talked too that this, we've talked about the songs coming together and they were recent and not so recent. But sort of a concept album emerged.
Yeah.
And you've talked about the idea that I guess growing up, were there either concept albums or collections of songs that really made an impact on you?
Absolutely. I'm obsessed with the album. Like I'm obsessed with it. And I don't have favorite artists. I have favorite albums.
Hmm.
So, but growing up, we listened to Blue by Joni Mitchell
Yeah.
all of the time. Laura Nyro made a record, Gonna Take a Miracle, with Patti LaBelle. And it is this beautiful, it's like all of the songs she loved from her childhood, this cover songs. But it has this amazing kind of like folkiness of Laura Nyro and then this like power voice of Patti LaBelle. Um, Purple Rain was another one.
Right.
Um, Bob Marley's Survival. Miles Davis, Kind of Blue. Yeah, these are records that I can sit down and just listen to them over and over and over again. Astral Weeks by Van Morrison.
Hmm.
And for me, all of those records, first of all, there's no skips. I want to listen to every single song on all of those records, which is incredible,
Yeah.
And then second of all, like the songs are speaking to each other. And I think the songs are more powerful in the context of the record than just listening to them individually.
Yeah.
When I think about, and that, I mean that both lyrically and also melodically, sonically, what's happening in the record. Like when I listen to Blue by Joni Mitchell, and when I hear like the contrast of her guitar songs versus her piano songs, and when I hear her talking about kind of this longing for home, she's talking about Europe and California and Canada and all of these different lovers she has. Like there's this theme, and it feels. I've always said like writing an album is like when it's a concept album, it's like writing a novel versus a bunch of short stories. And I would rather read a novel and I would rather write a novel. And I'm so attracted to the album. And it's like such a bummer that we're living in this kind of very fast-paced society right now where like people are only listening to like 30-second clips of songs. But I really want and I think it's luxurious when we can take the time to just sit and listen to a full record. And when an artist does that, I just think it's mastery. Like you not only made, a collection of 8 to however many 20 great songs, but then you thought about how did those songs evolve? And you thought about how can I take the listener on an emotional journey through a record? And for me as an artist, like that part is so important. And as a listener, I love it when an artist does that.
Well, unfortunately, I think you're the exception these days. I'm talking to not a lot, but a fair number of singer-songwriters and musicians and stuff these days. Every now and then somebody will say that, but I've had people that have 10 albums under their belt, 15 albums under their belt, and they're kind of saying, I don't think I'm going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to like release these singles. So I think both probably have a place, but I hope that the idea of creating an album doesn't ever go away, because I think it is special.
It's special to me. For now, at least, it's kind of like the medium I like working in.
Yeah.
And I already I was just away for music camp, Miles of Music, and one of my goals at camp was to sit down and figure out, do I have the next record written already? And I do.
Okay.
And it's the same thing. It's like, here's this collection of songs, like, are they talking to each other? Are there themes, and do the themes make sense? And again, it's kind of like, do these songs all want to hang out together?
Yeah.
And
love
I was
that.
like, yeah. And I kind of walked away from that week being like, yeah, these songs actually do want to hang out together. And there's both lyrically some themes, but then like sonically and melodically some themes that are playing too.
Okay. Well, think I've read that you recorded it in West Springfield, Massachusetts, at a place called, is it Ghost Hit Recording?
Yeah.
It's in an old church. Is that right?
Yeah. They converted a church from 1800 into apartments on the bottom. So that's where the band stayed. And then a studio on top. And I made this record that was spiritual. And I said, I don't want to record it in a basement. There are so many amazing studios, but there's no light and they're in basements. Right. And I was like, I want to be able to like look outside and feel like I'm doing a spiritual record, recording it in a spiritual place. And then just like, one of the really cool things with the live room is, so they mic'd the very top of the ceiling in the live room. So when I sang, I didn't do all of the songs, but when I sang some of the songs in the live room, we captured the reverb all the way at the top of the ceiling. And then the mixing engineer kind of could decide how much of that sound we wanted. And I'm always someone who, I hate singing with synthetic reverb. Like anytime I'm singing in a booth or singing live, I always tell the engineer, take the reverb out. Like I hate that. But to sing in an actual church where I actually felt like I was able to like manipulate the reverb and like push it back and forth was so powerful and so incredible. And it just was beautiful. Like for me, I was like, I want to be surrounded by beauty. I don't want to be in a dark basement.
Yeah.
So, and special to do it in a way that everybody could stay there for 5 days too.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. I didn't want to make this record in a basement. Like it's a spiritual record and I wanted to make the record in a place where there was lots of light. And there's so many great studios.
Right.
A lot of them are in basements or places where there's no light. And so I wanted to make a record where there was light. I wanted to record somewhere that I felt was a spiritual place. Okay. And so that church felt that way. And I think for me, my definition of being a witch is like always changing. But I think what I mean when I say that is I have a really rich spiritual practice.
Okay.
That is very connected to nature. And that is connected. And when I say connected to nature, I mean like I'm doing things like herbalism. Yeah. I am paying attention to what animals cross my path. I am working with the cycles of the sun, which is what Cycle and Change is based off of. So summer solstice, winter solstice, the equinoxes. I'm working with the cycles of the moon. I feel like for me, there really isn't a difference between a spell or a poem or a song. Like all of those things to me are manifestations in words. And they all have power to them. And I read tarot. That's like another thing that I do. So, but I think there's also like saying the word witch is like, it's spirituality that has like a feminist aspect to it. And I think oftentimes, like, when we look back in history, people often became witches because they didn't have any other options. Like, things were being taken from them, or they had to figure out how to use what they had available to them. Like with herbalism, it's all about knowing how to just grow things in your backyard that can be medicinal or magical.
Right.
So there's like an empowerment aspect to that. And I love the idea that I can have a unique connection to like whatever my version of God is.
Mm.
And it's like a personal relationship, and I'm not reliant on another person or an institution in order to have that relationship. I think that's really important to me.
So your childhood, were you raised in a more traditional environment than you sort of said thanks but no thanks, or was this fostered
No,
by
my parents were completely woo. My parents were my dad was raised African Methodist Episcopalian. My mother was raised Protestant, and both of them kind of rejected the religions of their upbringing.
Yeah.
But my parents were really cool. They didn't push anything religious on me, and I had a really, I think, expansive religious upbringing because I had a lot of Christian friends. I had a lot of Jewish friends. And so if it was Friday night and I was sleeping over one of my Jewish friends' houses, we did Shabbat. So I learned how to do Shabbat.
Okay.
And if I was waking up at a friend's house and it was Sunday morning, I went to Sunday school. I went to church. And I went to so many different types of synagogues and churches. And then I also got this like spiritual, learning from being at home. And my parents never told me this is what you're supposed to believe. They just exposed me to a lot of things and let me figure out what I wanted to believe. And I just really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point because I think, you're all about social justice and inclusivity. And I think it's interesting that there's a lot of people I think are raised thinking and believing that this is the right way, it's the only way, et cetera, et cetera. And by default, that actually excludes so many people, you know? And so anyway, it's interesting that, you're sort of living out. Probably when you were 10, you didn't think, well, I'm going to be a singer-songwriter, I'm going to do this and this, and I'm going to be representing all these things. But it's really interesting that your upbringing sort of manifested that to look and feel like it is today. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was super embarrassed by my parents when I was a kid. Like, it was embarrassing that they were weird and, against the norm. But I think what I was raised with, because I was exposed to so many different religions and spiritual practices, is that I just have appreciation for religion. Like, I love learning, like, how does your culture like celebrate this, or like, what do you all do for this type of thing, or what are the rituals you have around this, like. And I love that in general. Like, there are certain things that feel like they're my practices, but I love learning about, like, how does everybody's culture do weddings or funerals, and however, so every culture is marking the passing of the season somehow. Like, how are you doing that? How are you doing rest, right? So many religions incorporate rest, and how is your religion or spiritual belief incorporating rest? And so I love community gathering around something bigger than ourselves and doing ritual together. And I'm very down to go and do that and experience that, even if it's in a religion that's not my own, just because I think it's cool.
Well, you're curious too.
Yes, I'm very curious.
Which is great. All right, cool. Well, I guess, and I don't mean to be the horse dad. Again, this is me as a middle-aged white guy that lives in the South and grew up in the Bible Belt. I just think the term witch is just really interesting that you would use that, because I think for someone like me, it's like, oh my gosh, I think of like, Elphaba, and Wicked, right? But what your point earlier is, it's a feminine leading term that really represents and describes a very spiritual connectedness and intent to be connected with nature and others and things like that. Is that fair?
Yeah, and I think it's a reclaiming of the term a little bit
Hmm.
too, right? Um, what we know from a lot of the witch trials is that like a lot of people who ended up like dying were like the midwives or the people who had the medicinal knowledge or just poor people. Like, so
Hmm.
that word was demonized, and it's kind of like reclaiming it and reclaiming the power of it.
Okay, interesting. So you talked about growing up on Cape Cod, very isolating, based on primarily race and maybe some other factors. I guess when you were at the Berklee School of Music, obviously it's in Boston, metropolitan area, highly esteemed school. I guess did things feel more inclusive and better there? And I guess what were your biggest takeaways, from that experience?
Yeah, so I went to Berklee College of Music for my master's degree. And I actually spent a year in Spain. They have a program that is abroad. So I was in Spain for a year, and then I did a fellowship year in Boston. And one of the things that is the most incredible about being at Berklee is the student body is from all over the world.
Mm.
And so there were musicians playing instruments I had never heard of, playing styles I had never heard. It was so diverse in so many different ways. It was really, really, really cool. And yet we were all connected by our love and passion for music. And so um I felt very comfortable there. And I also felt um like the student body itself. I we could have had no classes, and just sitting around learning from each other and learning from each other's traditions would have been like so rich. Um So I definitely I went to boarding school for high school close to Boston, and then I went to Goucher College in Baltimore, Maryland for my undergrad. And I definitely think that like each step of the way I was exposed to like more and more people and felt more and more seen. Um but yeah, Berkeley is this special place where there's just so many different types of people.
Yeah.
And when I was 21, I did a semester abroad in Brazil. Um, and that was probably the first time that I really felt like, oh, wow, I feel normal. Brazil has a very high multiracial population.
Right.
And as long as I wasn't talking, because I'm horrible at Portuguese, but as long as I wasn't talking, everyone thought I was Brazilian because I look like what a Brazilian person looks like. And that was the first time that I ever experienced that, um, both growing up in a very white space, but then even going to Black spaces and being a multiracial person, I didn't feel like I really fit in either. And it wasn't until I was in a space like Brazil where it's so many different cultures coming together, that I felt like, oh, I feel just normal. And Berkeley definitely has that same feeling too, because there's just people from all over the world, but we're all coming together because we love music. So
Right. Well, you've now kind of landed in a I'll call it a community or a space, folk music,
yeah,
where it's not too diverse.
no,
Right. And I think you're one of the voices that's trying to, reinforce the diversity of folk music and the tradition, probably the traditions that date back centuries in terms of the influence of African Americans and the culture on Appalachian music and
yeah.
bluegrass and country, right? So I guess, yeah. Do you still feel isolated in some ways, and is that changing? Do you think?
I do feel isolated sometimes. Um, it's been very powerful. I'm part of the folk collective at Club Passim, and I launched this initiative. It's this event series called Reclaiming Folk, celebrating people of color in folk music. I also, a couple years ago, went to Folk Alliance and was part of their Black American Music Summit. And so I'm starting in the last 2-3 years, I've started to find pockets of other people of color in folk music. And it's really important because for so long it was like, yeah, if I would be the only person of color at a venue, or I was pushed. People tried to like push me into genres I didn't really want to be in. Like I'm not a hip hop artist. That's just not the music I'm making.
Right.
Um, and so I'm starting to feel a shift. I think it's kind of so many things, Jason, I've had to just like accept, like, if they don't exist, I need to create it or
Mm.
like find a group to create it. And so there's a little bit of acceptance of like anytime I'm feeling like left out or just like isolated, like I often have to maybe be the one to then go create the space that I need because other people need it, probably need it too.
So
Um,
how does that materialize day to day? Like, what does that actually mean? You put out ads in the, the newspaper and, like, how do you, is it word of mouth? Like on the ground, how does that actually play itself out?
yeah. So for Reclaiming Folk, for example, the whole goal was like I wanted to start an event series that was celebrating people of color in my community who are folk artists, but then also the folk artists are like folk ancestors who came before us,
Yeah.
who Lead Belly, Odetta, Taj Mahal, and even like Valerie June, like living and not living, like these artists who um are so foundational not just to my career and my artistry, but to American folk music, period. And so that was kind of the concept is I want to celebrate people and uplift people who are doing this work today. But I
Right.
also want to celebrate people who are a huge influence on American music and people might not even know their names. And I just started reaching out to people I knew in the community. Club Passim, the folk collective helped with that. But the thing that happens is like there actually are a lot of people of color in this folk scene. We're just really siloed and isolated. And so once I started kind of like putting my feelers out there, all of a sudden like people started just popping up or people would say, "Oh, you should reach out to my friend so and so or reach out to my friend." And now I'm getting like DMs and emails of like, "Hey, I heard you do this thing." So, um you always know when there's a market for something when all of a sudden, like, everyone's hungry for it, you know? It's
Right.
like people are hungry for this. Um, and I've been really lucky. I've applied to a ton of grants, and we've gotten a lot of grants to do this work. So, fingers crossed, who knows the grant world's gonna be like next year, but fingers crossed that that can still happen and we can still make that a reality. Um, but the work's really powerful, and um I feel like I'm doing my purpose and I feel in like alignment when I'm doing this work. So I want to keep doing it.
That's great.
Um, and I feel that I'm doing it for the audience, but I also think I'm doing it for the other artists too. And that feels really powerful.
Yeah. Well, just another aside, you remind me a lot of somebody in Toronto. Are you familiar with Julian Taylor?
No, I'm not.
All right, I'll send you his stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let his stuff speak for itself, but,
Okay. For
you
sure.
guys would be, get on really, really well in terms of just the worldview and, the music and perspective and everything. So he's great. I had the chance to interview him at Americana Fest last year. So
Awesome.
yeah, I'll send you that. All right, cool. So where do you think you are as an artist today and where do you wanna be?
Mm. I had this, I do a lot of visualization. I had this for so long. I had this visualization that like I was hiking up a mountain, hiking up a mountain, hiking up a mountain. And I finally got to the top of the mountain and I realized that everyone else was hanging out on another mountain. And I felt like that for so long. And now I feel that I finally arrived on the mountain where other people are.
Mm,
Um, and I'm still figuring out like what that means and where that is. But when I look at my career as it is, the different components, I'm really happy with everything I'm doing. I'm performing, I'm writing, recording records, I'm producing festivals, and I teach too. Like I love all the different hats that I'm wearing. And now I'm trying to figure out, how does it become sustainable? How do I get recognition? How do I get compensation from these things? I'm finally in a community that feels really good. How do we strengthen it? How do we keep bringing people together? So I'm no longer on that like uphill climb. But I feel like I've just arrived, and I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, how do I sustain this? Because
Right.
it's all the pieces are really good. But like I also want to like save up for retirement someday. And I'm not at that place yet.
Yeah.
So
How close are you, do you think, from being a full-time musician? Even if maybe that's not something you wanna do.
I would say I'm completely freelance. Like I'm not, and I don't think like I think even 50 years from now, I would still want to be doing all the different variety of things that I'm
Okay.
doing.
Yeah.
Like if you said, Naomi, like your music is doing so well, you don't need to teach, you don't need to produce a festival anymore, I would still want to do those things.
Right.
Um, I love, I'm very type A, and like I love, some artists are just like, I just want to be an artist and like
Yeah.
let me make my art. And I'm like, I want to be an artist and also a community leader, and also I want to be teaching. Like I want to be wearing all the hats. I get bored really easily too. So I think I'm in the career I want to be in. Like, and I have all the components that I want. And now it's really more of like, how do I get more money? How do I make it so I'm not burnt out all the time? How
Yeah.
does it feel more sustainable? Maybe it's a little bit, maybe I'd like to be doing a little bit more songwriting and a little bit less like production. Okay, how do I kind of, but yeah, I think if you told me, okay, you only will focus now on one thing, which is like writing music, or
Right.
now all you do is perform, I'd get bored with that.
Well, I imagine those other hats probably help you with the songwriting and giving you perspective and, you know, I'm sure that those experiences can only help round out your view and inspire you, for the creative side as well.
Well, and I love, like, I think what I love is like songwriting to me is very insular and private, and it's time just for me.
Mhm.
And then performing is so external, and then being able to curate a festival, um, I love that. Like I get to have a vision, and I
Yeah.
get to kind of think about what artists do I think would go well together? It's kind of back to that album concept, right? It's like when you're producing a festival, you're thinking about not just one individual artist, but a whole flow for the whole day. And like, how is it going to feel really? How can I make the flow of the whole day feel really good? We have two different stages, right? So I'm thinking about, okay, this artist is playing, and then 30 minutes later, this artist starts playing, and then this artist comes on. And I love thinking about that.
Yeah.
Um, and then I just feel like I have a duty with teaching, to like give back and like share what my knowledge. Like so many of the things that I've done, I had to learn how to do them myself. Like I'm really, really, I want to do a workshop, I think this fall, that will be like how to release a record completely independently,
Cool.
because I didn't know how to do that.
Right.
And now I know how to do it. And it's a professional level record, but
Yeah.
I didn't have a label. I didn't have an agent. And I know that at least in my city, there's probably several hundred people who would like to know how to do that. And our industry like gatekeeps so much information. And so I feel like really strongly that like it's part of my responsibility is to now share this information with other people.
Oh, that's great. But
Yeah.
it's back to the festival, orchestration. You've got one coming up late summer, right, that you're putting together?
Yeah, We Make Noise Fest. It's just a one-day festival. It's celebrating women and queer people in the Boston area. Lady Lamb is headlining. I'm really excited. It's a non-genre festival, so we'll have everything from hip hop to folk music. We do it in collaboration with Mass Now and with the Boston Women's Market and the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture. So in addition to live music, we'll have 20 to 30 women and queer vendors. We'll have visual art pop up. It's a free and open to the public.
Cool.
And it's just a really fun, wild day. And I, do the ridiculous thing where I'm producing the event, but I also perform. So at one point I'll hand my clipboard over to somebody else and jump on stage for 45 minutes and then jump off stage. But yeah, this will be our third year doing it. And I just had this dream. I was sick of not getting into festivals and sick of playing at festivals, and it would just be all dudes. And Boston, I think, is an incredible music scene, but does not get recognition for how much talent there is. There's an incredible folk scene in Boston. There's a really amazing rap and hip hop scene in Boston. There's an incredible kind of punk rock scene in Boston. And we don't get credit for that, and we don't always get recognition for that. And so I wanted that. I was like, I want to create a festival that's not just a dude fest, that celebrates the talent that's here, that's all different types of genres and all different types of people. And it's a lot of work, but I feel so proud that we now are doing this every year.
No, good for you. Yeah,
and it's so cool because it's one of the few festivals I've ever been involved in where people reach out to me and they are the performers are excited by the lineup.
All right.
They're like, I'm so excited to be on stage, sharing a stage with these artists.
Yeah.
They're so excited because they also are used to just dude fest after dude fest, and it's it just becomes heavy. And it's special to kind of go to a place where it's like, hey, we see you, we see how awesome you are. Here's a really cool, fun time.
Well, Naomi, thank you for your time. I guess I asked everybody this, and you've already demonstrated your curiosity in life based on a lot of the things you've already talked about. But this show is inspired by Ted Lasso. I don't know if you ever watched Ted Lasso, but the idea of empathy and positivity and then curiosity. So I guess, what are you most curious about today?
I think I'm trying to continue to remain curious as we've discussed, I'm in a period of time that's has a lot of hardship. But I want to still feel trust and optimism. And I think globally we're experiencing a lot of hardship too. And so I'm really been curious. I've been asking myself this question. This is I think a song I might need to write, but I've been asking myself this question, what do I need to believe in order to still want to get up tomorrow morning? What do I need to believe is true in order to have optimism for the future, and for my future, but for other people's and other generations' futures? And how can I kind of and if I believe that, then how can I live my life in service of that belief? And I don't know what the answer is, but it's something that I'm thinking about constantly is we're going through so much scary stuff, and it feels like maybe we're on the brink of a war. I don't know. But it's what do I need to believe in order to still get up tomorrow and feel like there is still joy and love and kindness in the world? And then once I figure out what that is, how can I make that a huge part of my life?
Yeah. Well, don't stop believing in your music.
Thank you.
Because that's a good start to continue to do that. It's really your voice is incredible, and the lyrics are just next level in terms of the depth and the meaning. So
thank you.
Cycle and Change is out. Good luck promoting it, and good luck with all the festivals the rest of the year.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. Thanks, Naomi.